Let's move on to another Big Ten matchup. And this is Dennis Garcia's first look of the week. He's backed Rutgers here. And let's talk Rutgers, Michigan State. Michigan State opening up as minus 14-point favorites. That's all the way down to 12.5 already and going down. This total sitting at 46.5 with no movement. Rutgers will have a new head coach, Greg Schiano, on the sideline. They have a battle for starting quarterback between Sikowski and Vedral, the transfer Noah Vedral. Rutgers defense will be led by a new defensive coordinator, Rob Smith, 6 returning starters. And then Mel Tucker takes over the reins of Michigan State after D'Antonio retired. Rocky Lombardi expected to be their new starting quarterback. Elijah Collins will be the feature running back. And the Spartans lost their top 3 receivers from last season. Rutgers, Michigan State. John, Big Ten matchup. Take it away.
Rutgers is really the problem child of the Big Ten, I think. It's probably fair to say, but they are making progress in getting rid of that toxicity from the previous probably 5 or 6 years. So with this matchup, I'm thinking Rutgers is the side, and the reason being is that they have the pieces together now. If you ever have been to their facilities, they have some of the best facilities in the Big Ten and the nation. They just can't get the athletes to go there. And I think that's changing. They are coming off a very good recruiting year, and that'll pay dividends down the road, not necessarily for this game. Michigan State has, they're the team that's kind of even harder now to get players to go to East Lansing. The winters are brutal. And it's much more fun to go down south into the SEC schools for those 5-star recruits. So they have their hands full getting those type of players to come to Michigan State. But you did mention a new head coach, Mel Tucker. He's rebuilding this year. He only has 10 starters coming back, 7 on offense, 3 on defense. I wanted to mention a couple other things here on this game as I scroll down through the sheets. This is a game that is one of those 28-point type games, the pivot points that I always talk about. And it actually favors Rutgers. Michigan State, for those that don't know, the Spartans have always been a defensive-minded team first. And they played some extraordinarily great defense over the years. But in this game, there's a high probability that the Rutgers Scarlet Knights will score more than 28. And believe me, they had seasons where scoring 28, you had to add up four games in a row to hope that they got to 28. But in this case, 28 points or more over the last 3 years, they're 3-0. So there you go. That shows you how many times they've scored 28 points. But when they do, it's good. Over the last 10 years, 77-24. And this pivot point applies to really, really, really well, like accurately with the SEC and the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Not so much in the ACC, but those 3, it comes up all the time. And I think this game, as a result, will go over. Michigan State's defense not nearly as good as last year. And this particular system has gone 138 and 74 last 5 years. That comes out to 67%. You play over the total with teams between the total of 42.5 and 49.5, with 4 or fewer defensive starters returning. I guess I don't know what to say after that. It's 4. You have a team that's only has 4 returning starters on defense. It's very logical that this game would go over then.
It makes a ton of sense. The lack of returning starters.
Sometimes sense doesn't get you to the profit line either,
No, I know.
That's the one problem with logic. When I started looking at a game that looks so easy to go over, and I started thinking, well, why wouldn't it go over?
That's interesting. Let's see what CMAC has to say about Rutgers, Michigan State. John, a lean at this point, John? Have you got to the window with this over 46.5?
No, I want to watch it the rest of the week, Jimmy, if that's all right, and then see if the over kicks in. There's also a possibility here, too, that I'll get a play out of the models from Rutgers. And, initially it sounds like a bold statement, but, Rutgers is a team that I don't think any of these guys are going to play in this kind of season in the year 2020 because they're the one team that can come out of nowhere and just wreck you. So seeing it at 13 and coming down from the opening level means that there's money going on Rutgers. So it's a dangerous game for Michigan State, in my opinion.
And we've already heard that Dennis Garcia backing Rutgers. C-Mac, what do you think of this spot? Big Ten opener for Rutgers, Michigan State.
This is ugly. D'Antonio, he's out. Obviously, Rutgers has brought back Schiano. The last year, especially the last 2 years, and he's gone. Michigan State wasn't like the old Michigan State. They couldn't cover, they couldn't score. I think they've lost a lot. My lean would be Rutgers, but they were very bad. Last year, we can say they were improving and hope Schiano brings them back a little bit. But I didn't see much in them last year. My lean would be Rutgers, but this is a pass. This is just an ugly one. So I'm passing here.
A pass for C-Mac and John Ryan. Very interested in the over 46.5.